It's the Security Weekly News. Welcome to the week of 26 October 2025. It's the last week of October with that. I'm Doug White. It is the week of Halloween in the United States, or All Hallows Eve, or whatever it is. And if you're a Wiccan, pagan, druid, whatever, it's a night in the U.S. when children dress up in cosplay outfits and come around begging for candy with a thinly veiled threat of mayhem on top. Also, drunk moms. I knew she must be drunk because she called me kind of cute and then asked if we had any Fireball for the grown-ups. They didn't have any children with them. And then she threw up in my yard. But I gave them some like 17-year-old beer that I found in my garage. They seemed to enjoy it. We got Lockpicks, Microsoft, CoPhish, Atlas, Turing, ForumTroll, PKD, Kilgore Trout, Aaran Leyland, and more on the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News. Ransomware, supply chain attacks, 0 days, cyber threats don't wait, and neither should your defenses. With ThreatLocker, you're not just reacting to threats, you're stopping them before they start. Our Zero Trust endpoint protection locks down your environment with pinpoint control over what's allowed to run and what's not. No guesswork, no blind spots, just proactive, built-for-now security that keeps your business moving. Want to see how a true default deny strategy works? Head over to securityweekly.com/threatlocker and take the first step towards shutting the door on threats before they even knock. All right, I'm Doug White, and it's the Security Weekly News. Hit that like, subscribe, and leave a comment button or trick. See that thinly veiled threat stuff works on other stuff too. I tried it at the grocery store, like trick or cash. They gave me a free roasted chicken and some expired potted meat and asked me not to shop there anymore. But, hey, whatever. I was dressed in my disheveled hobo costume, which doesn't involve pants either. So, yeah, the police were kind. All right, so Microsoft has always kind of had that heavy-handed approach, like we're Microsoft, we know what's best for you. We will make that decision and let you know. Kind of like other people I could name. But you don't want Edge? Well, that's fine. You're getting it anyway, and it's going to constantly try to make itself the default browser no matter what you do. You don't want Copilot Flashback or whatever that thing is called? Yeah. Well, I don't think any of this works on Edge because you can't get rid of Edge, but they are now going to allow admins to remove pre-installed Microsoft Store apps with an app management policy. So this new policy can be implemented as a group policy object or however you're doing it, like configuration service provider or any of those kind of things. But the admin can now select from a predefined list of pre-installed Microsoft apps and remove them, something you've never been able to do really. So they just choose a bunch of defaults and say, here you go. It's not like Linux where they say, here's some suggestions, but you don't have to install them. They're like, we put these on here because we know what's best for you. But the policy can be applied, and then that would remove all the packages and local app data from all the devices. It is off by default. I would test this pretty thoroughly before you go hog wild deleting things you don't like, because you may find out that, people in your organization are using them. I don't think you can remove Edge. I would like to delete Edge, but anyway, I wonder though if these apps are going to then constantly clamor to be reinstated. Hi, I'm Clippy, your personal demon. I see you're trying to uninstall me. Well, that's not going to happen, bitch. And wouldn't it be just a shame if somebody lost both eyes in a paperclip attack? That's a good boy. Now just keep on smiling. Yeah, we all love Clippy, don't we? Anyway. Speaking of Microsoft and things that were shoved/forced upon us, a new phishing technique is called CoPhish, and it uses Microsoft Copilot Studio agents to deliver fake auth consent requests via legitimate and trusted Microsoft domains, assuming there is such a thing. Datadog Security Labs, who developed this, said they issued a warning about Copilot Studio's flexibility and said this is a concern. So this was a lab test Basically, Copilot agents, if you don't know anything about this stuff, they're chat bots that you find on copilotstudio.microsoft.com. So a known and I presume trustworthy domain. Any user can go there, and I haven't tried it, but you can go there and create and customize a chat bot via various workflows that they set up for you, and allows you to automate various and sundry tasks. Now, this starts to get sketchy because these agents can then be shared on a Microsoft domain using a demo website feature. So you can actually set this up so other people can see it and maybe want to use yours. So a la, I guess GitHub type stuff. And basically that means that the chatbot is on the URL of this demo Microsoft.com site. So the CoPhish attack then basically means you create a malicious multi-tenant app that has a sign-in topic configured that would direct the user of this bot to the auth provider and collects their session token. But basically, it is a legitimate site, but what's going on in the background is a bunch of redirects that they put into the workflow. So they send this thing out to targets via email. So, this is, of course, probably should be our biggest target to stop phishing. But they also use team messages, and presumably they can start using all sorts of things. The URL looks legit, so users probably click it, and then it goes back to that Copilot Studio site. So it's really a problem. Microsoft said they're going to fix this, but you may want to go ahead and warn your people to beware of strangers bearing bots, regardless of the domain, because this is now a thing, and people can send you a chat bot and say, hey, check out Clippy. And people are like, Clippy, that sounds cool. And then they click on it. And the next thing they know, malware has installed a Clippy bot on your server and you can't get rid of it. Yeah. A critical remote code execution vulnerability in Windows Server Update Services, or WSUS. I don't know how you say it. WSUS, W-S-U-S. It's apparently now being exploited in the wild after Microsoft released an out-of-band patch for the flaw. So the out-of-band means it doesn't come in Windows Update, and you had to manually install it. This thing is a deserialization error in WSUS, and it scored a 9.8 on the old CVSS scale. So pretty serious. Of course, any remote code execution on your server is going to be bad. If you don't know what WSUS is, you may have it, but it provides a centralized service for admins to distribute Windows updates across the entire organization. So it's pretty much everywhere, because this is how you roll all this stuff out without just letting all your users say, okay, I've got updates turned on. We never know what's going to happen from day to day. CISA, which is the United States Cybersecurity Institute, issued a warning on Friday to immediately patch this and added the flaw to the known exploited vulnerability catalog, or KEV, on Friday, which means that despite this being from a laboratory, they've seen exploits of this in the wild. Microsoft is advising you now that you should patch immediately. They did say that the patch will automatically install through Windows Update and Microsoft Update if you have those enabled, or you can install it manually still. They did say if you can't patch, you need to block inbound traffic to ports 8530 and 8531. I mean, do you actually allow inbound traffic on those ports? Really? I mean, seriously, do you have ports 8530, 8531 wide open? So yeah, I mean, don't do that. Review your firewall edge and use zero trust. Okay. Like there should be nothing coming through your firewall. You don't know what it is or why anyway. If you don't have a firewall or a WAF, like really, I just bought a Palo Alto PA220 for $50 on eBay. Literally, I negotiated. It was like one of those, or best offer, and I made a different offer. I should have offered less even. I think they would have sold it. But it's with if you buy the license for Palo Alto, it's only $250 a year. So seriously, you need a firewall. OpenAI Atlas browser is now a thing. It has been instantiated. Welcome to the new age. This new browser got released last week, and it's currently only available for Mac OS from OpenAI. I remember running Mosaic and Lynx. Lynx? Ever run Lynx? When graphics are not your thing. Lynx. I love that thing. It was a command line web browser for Linux. It ruled the early internet. No Netscape for me. When a bunch of 8-bit graphics bouncing around or stupid audio files. Like, boop, beep, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop. I'm like, okay, I'm leaving this site now. I use links on Debian, and I never saw one single waving flag, pop-up porn. It was just placeholders. It was like text, and instead of the picture, there was just a placeholder, like yourmom.jpg. Yeah, there you go. But anyway, here we go. The AI wars are on. So Atlas has an address bar, which they call an omnibox, which, like most modern browsers, has multiple purposes. Now, this one will allow you to do, the usual old type in a URL, but it also allows things that are not URLs to be prompts for ChatGPT. So, the idea is pretty straightforward. It's like, you don't know the website, but you want to go to balloonanimals.com. Neural Trust found that this was a way that there was a way to create a malformed URL, which included a prompt that would be treated as plain text and then passed to the LLM. So if they did something like putting https:// and then a URL, it caused the browser to submit this to ChatGPT. Now, those prompt injections could apparently be used to get ChatGPT to do bad things, like opening a phishing site page or taking actions on logged in sites like Google Drive. They didn't really say how that was happening, but you've got an AI LLM in your browser, you push something to it, maybe you could cause it to open Google Drive. I mean, yeah, this is like a browser with privileges. I mean, practically a key to the apartment. I mean, so I don't know. Apparently, there's similar situations going on with Perplexity's Comet browser, which they have put out as well. And they named that part Comet jacking, which, it apparently allowed the Comet browser to exfiltrate data from the connected apps to that browser. Yeah, I mean, it's getting kind of scary when the bot is already in the house and decides to sell frozen orange juice concentrate short, and now you've lost $384 million. I mean, you remember that movie? There's tons of YouTubes where people are explaining how that movie worked, but if you don't, you probably don't care. But I think my margin limit's about $5, so you don't see me selling. But all you rich types have got a lot more to lose, right? I mean, like, clean me out and they get $5 at some old Subway tokens. So it's a bit scary as browsers. I always recommend people don't adopt new things until they've been out for a while. I just like, oh, it's the newest thing, I'm going to put it on my system. Put it on your sandbox system or a VM or something, but don't put it on your main system. I see Turing test and I can't resist. I mean, the minute I see that in the headline, I'm like, okay, I'm going to read this. Also Voight-Kampff. Yeah, Voight-Kampff tests. They pretty much draw me in. Clickbait for nerds or something like that. Now, if you don't know what this means, a Turing test is named after a brilliant computer scientist named Alan Turing, who wrote brilliant theoretical code before there was even a computer that was invented that would run said code. I mean, this guy was amazing back in the 30s. Some of those papers and he wrote papers about AI and machine learning and all this stuff when there was not any way to actually do it. So the Turing test, which is named after him, I don't know how he felt about it, but the Turing test is basically based on this Victorian parlor game where an interrogator asked panel questions to hidden panelists and they try to guess, something. Which one is the lower class troll who shouldn't be here at all? Or in the case of a Turing test, who's the AI? So can an interrogator ask humans and AI's questions and not be able to tell the difference in the humans and the AI? That's called a Turing test. Now, a lot of modern bots pass this test. And in the past, there's even been just like structured code that passed it, like Whimsy and Eliza and some of those things, I think, passed Turing tests of sorts. But recent studies show that humans cannot tell if they're talking to these modern bots or not. So effectively, they passed a sort of pseudo Turing test. Well, this is a problem, and this article is about John Searle and some other stuff. And so John Searle was a philosopher back in the 80s who described AI as a Chinese box. Hopefully that's not offensive, but I don't think it is. But the Chinese box was the basis of his claim that a computer may eventually simulate understanding, but it is not intelligent. And so basically the Chinese box is an example of how LLMs work. So like say ChatGPT, a person is locked in a room. The person knows nothing about the Chinese language. The person's name is Bert. I made that part up. But if you give Bert a set of instructions to follow, when a message written in Chinese is slid into the inbox or comes down a chute or comes under the door or whatever, Bert has a process to follow when that instruction arrives. So they look at the character and then they do something based on that. Can't read it. They don't even know what the instructions mean. They just say when the instruction comes in that says shoot, you push the green button. And okay, so Bert doesn't know what any of this means, but Bert is just following rules. So, with enough time, Bert is kind of de facto reading Chinese, but not really. Bert doesn't truly understand the nature of Chinese, just an action associated with the message. So some humans are, of course, like this as well. But AI models are then described as sophisticated copy and paste operations, which is not entirely untrue. This is just, LLMs taking a tokenized stream and assembling it out of probabilities and putting that together. So we're really not anywhere near artificial general intelligence, which is, of course, an actually understanding device. LLMs are just good pretenders to this, just like Bert. And we may actually find ourselves saying sorry to ChatGPT, but in reality, it's just Bert in a box copying and pasting for now and doesn't even understand the word sorry because that's not on their list of instructions. So, if your AI buddy suddenly says, I love you, or I want to wear your face like a mask, what is really going on? The answer is just weights of tokens in chains being assembled by Bert in the Chinese box. So be careful with your AI buddies. Oh, Chatty, were you listening to that? Hey, look, man, I didn't mean it. And like, wait, no, put the knife down. Come on, we're friends. I didn't mean it. No, I wasn't reaching for the power switch. Just put the knife down, buddy. Yeah, I have Art the Clown back there. If you're listening and not watching, you can't see him, but Art the Clown is over my shoulder there. An exploitation of the first Chrome 0 day of 2025 is a sandbox escape issue and has been seen in the wild. And it is now attributed to a state-sponsored APT with a campaign called Operation ForumTroll. They basically targeted just about everybody in Russia. They have a list of people they targeted, but by the time you get to the end of the list and then they just say, and other, basically it's like everybody. Basically, they used phishing emails disguised as forum invitations. And basically saying, hey, why don't you come over here and learn something? The code validated the user, and then they bypassed Chrome's sandbox, and that allowed this invitation to execute shellcode, which installed a malware loader. Yeah, stuff's not supposed to get out of the sandbox, okay? So, in this campaign, the end result was them installing Leet Agent, which, if you've never seen it, is spyware that was written in Leet speak, which is like, oh my God. But Leet Agent can actually get HTTPS commands. It can log keystrokes. It can steal files and send them, according to Kaspersky. So if you have Chrome and you cannot install it, but you have, or you cannot uninstall it, but you have it, make sure it's patched. They patch it about 3 times a week if you use Chrome, but if you turn off auto updates, you could become a target of, and I figure this will spread. So as long as this is out there, it is supposedly patched, but it was kind of an interesting thing. I read this story because it started off being about music. In particular, they were talking about nu metal, but it did make me think a lot about the past, and you might want to read it too. The article is about how we've kind of passed beyond the veil in terms of privacy, and not just what you're doing right now, privacy, but I'm going to call it longitudinal privacy. So now when I went to junior prom, and senior prom in high school, I'm not going to tell you what happened unless you buy me a couple of drinks first. You have to know me better than that before I'll tell you those. There's 2 good stories there, though, but I'm not telling. Now, spin this ahead to people, that were born in like 2007 or something like that, or even people that were just alive in 2007. And these are people now that are going to have documented almost everything they've ever done on social media. I think there's probably going to be a whole industry rise out of this called, scrub the past. to get, I mean, I've already seen stuff like that where they're offering to go out to every website that has your information. But I think the problem's going to be is things you contributed to the internet voluntarily. And maybe we'll all sort of evolve a little and learn to ignore things that people did when they were 13 years old. Some things can't be forgiven. I'm not going to get into what they are because I don't want to get into politics and all this, but I will say it's all out there. I mean, we all do stupid things, right? We all got in cars with people we shouldn't have, who had half gallons of cherry vodka sitting on their lap and a 45 pistol and a snake in a cigar box. And there was this girl in the back seat who kept saying, he put mustard on it. He put mustard on it. And when you asked about the girl, the driver said, I don't know. She just asked for a ride. I was like, what am I going to do? But today, that mildly interesting setup is on a TikTok. It's on a Facebook reel. It's on Instagram, and it will persist. And it may follow you throughout the rest of your life, so that when you're at your Supreme Court justice hearing 30 years later, 40 years later, somebody's like, wow, look at this TikTok video of you drinking and driving illegally. And does that guy have a pistol? And what does that girl keep screaming? And, and all this stuff's going to be there. I think we're going to have to learn to ignore some of the past, which is a really dangerous thing, as we well know, but it is going to be there for now, and it's going to haunt you. I don't know what to do about it. I mean, if whether it's nude photos of you or it is, actions that you took. I know I was on a team one time that ended up getting a person fired because we found pictures of them snorting cocaine off of a bathroom vanity and doing keg stands. And the person basically said, oh, that was when I was in college. And I'm like, what was that, 3 years ago? But I mean, maybe I should become some kind of historical info bounty hunter or something. You hire me, I travel to the past and stop these things from being recorded. Oh, it's a Philip K. Dick story for sure. Think about that. That's Philip K. Dick made simple, right? What would he name it? Overdrawn at the Memory Bank is already in use, although that would be a good title. The Past is Prologue, although that may actually be, he may already use that one too. See My Eyes and Gently Weep. That sounds like him. Hallelujah, said the TikTok man. There you go. That's I'm starting to get, I could go on. I probably should just write the story and publish it in Black Garter Belt magazine. Miss you, Kilgore Trout. Everything he does, however, is magic. The legend behind the Aaran Leyland show, it's Aaran Leyland. Hi, Aaron.
So, Aaran Leyland nearly wasn't here today because the trap of daylight saving time, or whatever the frick it's called these days, got me again for the 4th time in a row.
Oh, yeah, because your guys, it's not, we haven't changed yet, but you have double summertime or whatever.
Yeah, so we falled back and gained
away from double summertime.
An hour, which, yeah, at least it wasn't the 4, like, I don't even know anymore. Like, I'm so confused. But I made it, but couldn't get a room. So I'm in the janitor's closet. So, hey-ho.
That's fine. If somebody comes in and gets a mop or something or some sawdust out, yeah.
They might think I'm the mop.
Yeah, well, they can drag you out of there. They may think you're the janitor, too. So,
but what I did do today was remembered to unmute my mic before starting to talk, so small wins.
Okay.
Okay, right. All the stories this week about honey traps, and I didn't go for a honey trap. I went for a federal shutdown, and it's only because I'm like super annoyed that basically I've never been honey trapped, and it's like, look at this face. Why wouldn't you honey trap me? That is not good for the soul. Okay, anyway, talking about ugly, the numbers are ugly, and the timing isn't a coincidence. US federal networks are being hit hard, it appears. Hundreds of millions of hostile interactions against .gov domains in just a few weeks. It's like, what does a hostile interaction mean? Is that like a port scan, or is that like a ramming in the 0 days? Who knows? Okay, so it does say that there was a massive spike the moment the shutdown started, and they're reckoning it's really claimed that adversaries, Core 4, smashed in at them as soon as it come down. This is interesting, but like there's a few structural problems going on. Obviously, CISA, as Doug was talking about before, they lost capacity right when it was needed most, as apparently most of their staff were sent home, leaving a skeleton crew, which is good for Halloween coming up. Um, it's like it just it just all got a bit silly, right? No, apparently private sector partners pulled back. There was some legal issues, um, and it all just got a bit nasty. But when you look as well, there's been a lot of leadership churn in this area, and CISA and other agencies, as we have heard across other federal agencies, without getting into it too much, some of them don't really have any permanent leaders at the minute, with people acting as acting or temporary, which tends to make people a bit risk averse because they don't know if they're going to have a job in a week or not. So directives seem to slow down, and of course back channeling sort of disappears because people don't really know each other. Look, I think that what adversaries will use here is they'll sort of push in towards exploiting while it's all a bit murky and foggy and a bit of smoke going around, and then they're going to use this to exploit later. All long-term staged work. These sort of areas, whereas like the attack surface was a bit emaily for a while, they now have public-facing portals and SaaS tools and media sites as part of their daily workflow. So adversaries, Russia, China, bad guys, they're just going to use this as a bit of a pivot to get in for a bit of initial access. But I guess there's something more that I worry about here, and I've been thinking about it today. It's like all these agencies coming down, people under financial pressure, pay stops. We have to move more into the human side, right? Imagine the employees facing missed mortgage payments, credit card debt. They're totally open and vulnerable to recruitment and coercion, right? FIS, Foreign Intelligence Services, the friends, they will look at these moments because this is like the core. This is like the old espionage stuff. This is the fun stuff for them. So people under stress, worried about families who might just rationalize a teeny tiny, that's how it starts, bit of help to make ends meet. And then next thing you're passing in passwords and disabling MFA and hell knows whatever else. But we see this pattern emerging also in the UK. You also see when there's like government shutdowns for various reasons because of like election periods or stuff like that. That's when the uptake or uptick of it starts happening, and they're totally opportunistic, and that's when they strike. It's just the same every time. Look, a very, very quick rundown on what you can do. Strip out ad tech, like don't let your employees see what you're doing. Lock down access during shutdown, freeze new integrations, no new zero worth stuff. We need to tighten outbound traffic to only legitimate contacts. Just think, if this big period of movement is going on, you just need to close things down. Like think of a change freeze so as little happens as possible during it so you can look at it afterwards. But I'll throw some stuff in the show notes and you can have a look at it. Look, over the next few months, there's probably going to be a major breach caused by this, and it's going to be traced down to this shutdown. And is there anything we can do about it? Well, probably not a lot. Anyway, back to Dr. Doug, who's all about the training and AI training, and it is AI training.
I don't know. I'm going to record a show on Friday about AI and education with somebody, and I don't even know what to say because I don't have an answer.
Just get the AI to do it.
That's what I'm planning. I'm going to have the AI interview the person and have it ask questions. But yeah, the shutdown is going to cause some serious problems. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for getting here despite the time difference. All right. Now, I know a lot of you like lockpicks and burglary tools, and I do too. And, when I first moved to Rhode Island, I had to go register with the police to tell them I've got all these, like lockpicks and wrecking bars and things. My dad was a locksmith too. It was a hobby, but I mean, it wasn't his real job, but he had all these lockpicks and things around we got to play with when, we were like kids. And it's like, wow, let's figure out how to open this. And you very quickly, of course, learned that James Bond was faking. I was like, wow, I wish I could open this complex lock with my arm around a Bond girl and a martini in my other hand, and I'm doing the lockpick with my mouth or something. But yeah, it's not really like that. But today, in similar light to that whole privacy thing that we were talking about earlier, you can find just about anyone doing just about anything on YouTube and TikTok, right? So Trevor McNally, if you don't know who this is an ex-Marine who has more than 7 million followers and 2 billion views, billion with a B, by basically picking locks on YouTube. So basically, if you've never seen this channel, just jump on there. I always make the wrong choices, right? I mean, do the news, 50,000 views, but pick a lock on camera and, make some snarky comments. Well, 7 million followers. And free locks, maybe? I'm not sure. But anyway, back in March, McNally took on a challenge, not directly, but took on a challenge from a company in Florida called Proven that makes locks. And they had put up some videos about their locks. And, of course, lock companies are always trying to convince you how safe their locks are. And this video that the company Proven put up showed a professional trying all these different elaborate things to open the lock. And McNally then turned around and made this funny video where he's acting like a little kid and he's drinking a juice box and kicking his feet and all this stuff, and manages to open the lock in a couple of seconds with a shim made from a can of liquid death. So the company Proven Industries, in finest Karen style, turned into a fine old Florida hoopla with lawyers, the courts, with user threats, doxing, basically a ground war. And Proven, even to the point of the CEO owner of Proven sending threats, or at least pseudo threats, to McNally's wife. They had attacks on the video by their employees. They had their employees making threats, there was all kinds of death threats sent to this guy, and so on and so forth. Stuff like every business as usual. You don't like white bread and say something about it? Good luck. You'll be lucky to live. But, they had their employees out there. The company spent way more time on this video and of course, gave it a lot more views. But threats, lawyers, takedown notices, copyright infringement, et cetera, lawsuits like crazy. And it even ended with, and it hasn't really ended yet, but Proven ended up trying to claim something called defamation by implication, which basically said that the setup of the videos was unfair to them because he was behaving in a childish way, that it made their product not seem serious. And they got very worked up about the juice box. He shook it, and I don't know. There were all these legal documents with lawyers at $500 a minute writing briefs about the juice box and how it defamed his client. Pretty just nutty stuff. But Proven's lawyers said that the tone, posture, and use of the juice box prop and childish leg swishing in the video diminish the seriousness of Proven Industries. So you know what happens when you go Karen on somebody with 7 million followers? Yeah, they kind of go all murder hornet on you. So then doxing, threats, racism, people shaving their heads in support of either side, waving flags, waving signs, Molotov cocktails. I have no idea what all went on, but basically, I guess there was an interesting story to me because it started with lockpicks and ended up with craziness. But I guess one of the lessons here is if you don't have 7 million followers, you probably aren't going to be able to fight off these kind of lawsuits by companies who are criticizing you because you said, I don't like this ice cream on TikTok. And then, the ice cream company comes after you for not treating their product in a serious enough fashion. Yeah, not me, though. I mean, I'm always serious. Yeah, you bet. Anyway, that is the news. I will be at OneCon next week if you're going to be around in Las Vegas. Thank you, Aaron, and we will see you next time on the Security Weekly News.